Hey everybody, it's Reggie with Lawyer Interviews. Today we are talking to Andrew, who's out of Boston, Massachusetts. Hi Andrew, how are you?
Hey Reggie, thanks for being on with me. I'm on with you. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Good. So Andrew, I would love you to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you practice, and how you got into that area.
Yeah, definitely. My name is Andrew Delory. I work in a small law firm in Everett, which is right outside of Boston. Just me and my dad, and we have one paralegal. We do predominantly real estate law. So mostly, I don't know how it works where you are, but if you're going to buy or sell real estate in Massachusetts and you're going to get a bank loan, you have to use an attorney to represent the bank. So I'm usually involved in that process with the buyer. So we do about probably 75% of our practice at this point is like real estate conveyancing like that. But I also do stuff with developers and like zoning if you wanted to build an apartment building in an area you weren't supposed to. I do a lot of landlord tenant law and just kind of general litigation related to real estate. But basically, like, I don't do criminal law unless like one of my friends gets a DUI on Friday night and I can put it to bed quickly on Monday.
Right.
I don't like do bankruptcy, but basically if it relates to real estate, that's what we do.
Very cool. Okay, so you probably are one of the only legal nerds out there that understands property law. Am I right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
love
But
property law. Oh.
I have to tell you, I have to tell you, the least surprising thing I'll say today is that law school did not prepare me for my career. So
Yeah, no, I mean, do any of us know when we're like deer in headlights for those first few years? We're just like going with the flow, trying to not walk into traffic.
it's like, what a system. Like, let's start with the most difficult classes first and see who can survive long enough to actually graduate, right?
It is. It is. Well, that's a good transition into, maybe advice you've got for current law students. What would you say is like your best advice of law school and then like what to expect when you graduate?
Well, I think typical lawyer answer would be the same thing my dad said to me is don't do it, right? But
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
I think the thing about law school is, I guess it's different depending on what your experience is. Like, are you going to be a full-time day student, or like I worked all day and then I went to school at night, so I had a little different outlook. I think the biggest thing I saw is like if you're going to do this, like you got to want to practice law at the end of it, right? It's a lot of work and a lot of commitment for you to like get out, and then people are like, oh, I didn't even take the bar exam. Like, what
Right.
was the you made yourself miserable for all this period of time. You've accomplished this great thing. Like, see it to the finish line. Like, being a lawyer, and this is one of the reasons I did it, like, being a lawyer is never going to hurt you in your life. Like, being able to read a contract and understand it and negotiate it, kind of like no matter what you're doing in your life, that's always going to be a good skill set for you to have. So I think that take out of law school that you will take tools with you that you can use for the rest of your career, no matter what you decide to do. And I think, it's important for you to think when you're a law student, like, what do I want to do? Because this job, even when you do what you like, is difficult, and for any number of reasons, but it's particularly hard if you don't like what you're doing and getting up out of bed every day. So, make sure you have a focus on areas of practice that you think you might like. Make sure that you have the stomach for them, because there's a lot of dirty business that goes on, and carrying a lot of people's water all day long. So make sure you're doing something that you're passionate about while you're doing that. And I think, if you follow that, you'll end up ideally in a practice area that's something that you want to do. And the hardest thing is it's so easy to say, but the truth really is it's not about the amount of money that you make in this career. You can make a ton of money. You will hate your job every single day, right? You got to find what you like and do what you're passionate about. And then when you get results for people about something that you're passionate about, it's going to be so much more rewarding than any check could be for you. That's the biggest takeaway for me. Do what you love and don't worry about getting paid. Like, the client book and stuff will come. Be an honest person and do what you like, and then your practice will develop on its own.
Yeah, and I think that's such great advice. I couldn't agree with it more because, some of these, people watching are either going to be new attorneys, even seasoned attorneys, but even if you love what you're doing, I don't know if you agree with this, but even if you love what you're doing, you're going to have days you just hate, weeks, months, sometimes you just hate the work. And so you really do need to have that passion to keep driving you, because we're dealing with people's problems all day. Right?
It's brutal. And, it's so funny because, like, I work with my dad and I get all the old guy adages, right? But, one of his closest friends or attorney told me when I first became a lawyer, he said, what you have to understand about this business is anytime you're dealing with a client, chances are it's probably the most important thing that's going on in their life. Whether it's super important to you or not, the average person doesn't need an attorney. So if they have an attorney involved in their life for some reason, then it's probably something that they're up thinking about at night. It's probably, something major related to their business or their finances, right? So it always carries a high stress situation. And you have to understand that when they come in to do an initial consult with you, right? They come in and like, hey, this is my problem over here, and I'm sitting over here. But by the time they leave, their problem is now over here with me. They're just going to get up and leave and go back to doing whatever they're doing in their life. And now all of that water now has come on me. So I have assumed their problem, even if I didn't intend to do that. It's just like the nature of the beast of being in the business. So that's why I can't emphasize it enough. If you're going to carry other people's water, you better at least be happy what you're doing while you're doing it, because otherwise you're going to be miserable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know. I think that's amazing advice for people. And, in law school, I think that you get so focused on the curriculum, you don't think about the interpersonal relationships. I think that law school, still around the country, fails a lot to prepare people for clients and for taking on those problems. So do you have any advice for lawyers out there, even seasoned lawyers, of when you're taking on someone's burdens, of how to confer with a client? Like, how do you put their mind at ease? What do you do in your practice?
Well, I think the big thing is, and this is very difficult to learn until you get a few years in, like, you have to pick the cases that you want and the ones that you don't. You can't, because when you first get out, you have no business. You have, what I'm saying? You don't have a Rolodex of clients that are just like consistently coming in with something that they're doing. So it's so possible to just be like, I'm going to do this case absolutely sucks, but I want to get paid. Right. So I'm going to take it. And even though I know this person's going to make me miserable every single day that I work with them. So you have to avoid the temptation to just take anything because you want to build your book of business and attract clients that you want to be with. And as you go along, even once you just say, okay, now I've kind of, because we have to niche down. And lawyers don't want to think like that usually, but you have to, because you can't know everything about every single kind of law. I can't be a top-notch criminal defense attorney and be a top-notch real estate attorney at the same time. You just have to be out in the field working in those practice areas every day to get the experience. And that's what makes you valuable. And you have to be careful when you dip your toes into an area of law that you don't regularly practice, because, those common things that these everyday practitioners are dealing with, you might not be aware of. If I do a divorce case, sometimes I used to do divorces, but I haven't done them in a few years, and that it evolves every single day. And if you're not going to be in that practice area every day, you have to be able to learn, I'm just going to push away from it, because the problem for you is we're in a client-driven business. They want results. And if you can't get them the results because it's not your prime practice area, you got to know that you got to step away from it and refer them to somebody else. I mean, you're allowed to take a legal referral fee. The the Bar Association doesn't even prevent you from doing that, because they recognize that it's important that sometimes I find you in a position in your life that I can't help you, but I know somebody who can. So they encourage you to pass the business on. They're usually, it would be a kickback, right? There's a kickback all over all these legal laws, but referrals, it's not the case. So you just got to know, you're going to attract the business that you want. And even once you get into your niche, you got to work with people that you want to work with, because there's some clients that you just can't satisfy no matter what you do. You have to be able to identify them, and they have to work with your flow and your vibe. And, that's the only way for you to survive, is in a semi-healthy, enjoyable experience, is to work with people in areas of the law that you like to work in, with people who you like to work with. because otherwise they're just going to call you. You know, you get people that will just call you relentlessly because it's the only thing that they're thinking about. And the problem in today's practice is, right, you can call me at my office. I have 2 cell phones. You can email me. You can DM me on Instagram. You can message me on Facebook. Like, there's no escaping your clients anymore. So work with people that like you're happy to communicate with at 9:30 at night. Because the days of like closing the office door at 5 on Friday and coming back on Monday, they just don't exist anymore. And if you give some people an inch, they're going to take a mile every time. So spot the type of people that you want to work with and work in a practice area that you're happy with. It's just like, that's literally the only advice I can give lawyers. Like, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna, even when you're doing what you love, there's very tough days. So you gotta at least try to set yourself up for success by like being happy with what you do and working with people that make you happy to do it.
Absolutely. I think that's sage advice because, especially talking about always being available, and you have the unique perspective of, like you mentioned, working with your dad. So I'm sure he came from a different generation when it was kind of a 9-to-5-ish, world. I mean, legal research was in books and it's online now, and you weren't available. Yeah, there you go. And you weren't available 24/7, but now it's a different story for lawyers. So it's extra stressful because you're always thinking about work. So what do you do in your spare time or free time to alleviate some of that stress?
I think, like, is that, like, do you even have the answer to that? Like, is there any lawyer?
No, is there any lawyer? You got the answer. Do you have it?
Like, to be an attorney, that question is the pot of gold. And I don't think I've ever met anybody who's found like the recipe for, I am just like, I have a perfect balance. I go to yoga in the morning, and then I work for 2 hours, and then I walk the dog, and then I play with the kids, and then I go back to work, because it's like this, it's a vicious system of, if you don't put the time into the cases, you won't have the clientele and you won't get the results. So you're just like constantly fighting for like, what slice of personal time do I deserve versus like, how much do I need to have to my business? And again, like, constantly being available it makes you so much more susceptible to not taking personal time, because people don't respect your time. You have to take it for yourself. So like, to me, what I like, when I finally like unwind at 10 o'clock at night, like, I like to just like hang out with my dog and like have a drink and chill with my wife and just like watch some TV, and like just try to tell myself, like, Andrew, it's 11 o'clock at night. Like, it's okay for you to stop thinking about work for like 1/2 hour before you go to sleep. And I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night and think about work anyway, because I'm going to forget something, right? Like, yeah. Let's enjoy this small window of time that I've carved out for myself, because like my aunt died this week, right? So people call my office and they're like, I tell them, they're like, oh, I've been emailing you. I haven't got a response. I say, oh, hey, I'm sorry. My aunt died. I'm not really around the office. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Is my PNS ready yet? Right? Like, right. Just
I'm sorry. But
if you, and that's it, like, I struggle with this every day still. I work for myself. I live above my office. I have no commute. Like, I have no reason that I don't get up every single day and work out for an hour and take care of myself. But like, I just don't, because you become so addicted to like this culture of like, I'm not working hard enough. I'm not working hard enough. I'm not working hard enough. Like, and that's, as a lawyer, it's never going to stop. Even if you work 16 hours a day, you're going to have that feeling at the end of the day, because you're going to be like, I could have done more today. Right. And it's like, I don't know. I haven't found the perfect balance yet. I think all lawyers struggle with it. But it's a constant, like, I even see it with my dad. He's been practicing for over 40 years. Like, he has no hobbies. He doesn't take any time for himself. Like, he gets his haircut once a week. That's the only thing that he does for himself for the entire week, right? It's like, and I watch it and I'm like, grow up and don't be like him for my whole life, right? But like, here I am, I'm working in his office, making the same exact mistakes, right? So,
yeah, I get it. I have a little sister, and she graduated law school a few years ago, but same thing. I told her, don't do it. I said, don't do it. Don't go into it. They don't listen. You didn't listen to your dad. My sister didn't listen to me. And then they get it, and they're like warning the next generation to not do it,
That's it.
But
But
I mean,
that's it. But I don't know. The flip side of it though is like, I graduated from college, right? Like I used to, I'm not like a prep school kid. Like I worked at the mall for my whole life, like selling sneakers and like went to college and worked. And I got out in like the middle of a recession and I'm like working at the mall still. And I'm like, what did I just spend $200,000 for to like work a job that I could have not gone to college to get. And then, so I'm like applying and I'm looking around and I'm like, I just came to the like realization, like I didn't want to punch a clock anymore. And I didn't want to work on anybody else's schedule. And this career was the only way that I saw like clearly that like I could create a path for myself and kind of have the flexibility to do my own thing. So that's the double-edged sword, right? We always talk about the negativity, but the upside of it is like, I do have to work later at night, but the choice is I don't set an alarm clock in the morning unless I have court. Like I wake up when I wake up if I don't have an appointment, right? And I start working, and it's like to take 2 hours off at a time and go walk the dog in the middle of the day if I want to do that. Like the trade is the anxiety that sometimes that the clients put on you, because like I said, you have to dedicate the time to the craft. So it is tough to find out how to do it, especially when you want to have the flexibility of, I don't have to be in the office at 8:30 every morning, and I don't have to answer to a superior who looks for my timesheet all the time. Like I have a life that like I work in a family business and I deliver. My father has now acknowledged like I know what I'm doing and I'm bringing it in pretty good, and he gives me more flexibility. Like this is the only career that would have allowed me to have this flexibility at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love that too. And I love that you've got that new unique perspective of working with family. And I know there are other lawyers out there who end up in family firms. How have you found, has it changed your relationship with your dad working at the firm together as attorneys, but also father and son? Is it closer, or have you?
So it's so we're great. Like I have a great boss. Like I am so fortunate. Like even if he wasn't my dad, like he's such a great boss. But it's so funny. Like the first thing I thought of when you asked me that question was I was like thinking about when I was a little kid, because like they didn't have the internet. My dad couldn't come home and work from home and stuff. Like he was just like trapped in his office all day long, right? And I'm sitting there as a kid and watching that, and I'm like, does my dad not like coming home? Like, does
Right.
he have another family? Like the biggest realization I had is I'm like, shit, he's actually just been here working this whole time. Like this is it. And it's like, where's the yacht? What are we doing? He's been working so hard for all these years, right? So it made me really respect like how hard he had to work. So to be even like to wake up in the morning and like just be hanging out, eating breakfast, doing some work on my phone and stuff, like they never had access to any of that.
Right.
So we just have so much more flexibility in terms of where we can work and how we work. So I definitely like have so much more respect for his business to look at how he used to have to do it versus the freedoms that we have to do it now. But the biggest thing, and I think this is true in any family business, like there's always a give and take between one generation to another. And what I found is because I worked here as a paralegal for 2 years before I became a lawyer first. And I just really started to recognize like there's no substitute in the world for practical experience. Like what he knows from just the amount of volume of real estate closings that he's done and other shit that he's been through, like I can't replicate that with watching YouTube videos or reading books, or like I've done 3 years worth of work and now I have the same level of experience. It's just not true. Every day that he works, he takes the lead on me on how much knowledge that he knows. And like the realization that I had to come to for myself, which is tough. Like you have to, sometimes he tells me to do something and I want to like be like, oh yeah, he's my dad, go fuck yourself. I don't want to do it. Right. Like, but like, you have to take the hat off and you're like, I'm an employee in this situation. Right. And like, once I was able to realize that, and I just realized like, he's the boss, this is his business, and what he says goes. Like, and if I operate within that construct, he will give me a lot of flexibility. Like once I was finally able to like, be like, all right, he is my dad, but he really is the boss, and I need to respect him as the boss in this setting first. Like, I definitely had a different perspective on our relationship from that day forward.
It's really interesting and cool to have that kind of unique experience that maybe not every attorney has had out there. And I have another follow up to that because you mentioned you've got some kids. What are you going to say if they say one day, Dad, I want to be a lawyer?
So I have one. My son is unborn. He's due next month.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank
Congratulations!
you. I'm already prepared. When he asks me, I'm gonna say, "Don't fucking do it."
Yeah, yeah.
Don't, right? But that's the default answer.
And then we'll probably do what you did and still do it.
Well, you know what? It's a laugh. My father said, "I told you not to do it." I said, "Who listens to their parents, right?" Like, So what do you do? Do you tell him this is a great life, and then hopefully he'll like want to rebel against me and go do something else? Like, which is the way to go? I don't know. I think especially if my son asked me now, if there was ever a time that like he could see his grandfather and like work with his grandfather and his dad, like if time ever allowed us to do that, like it's cool. Like we're creating a generational business out of something that was a business for one person, right? Like now I am the next generation, and I like he's getting older and he's slowing down his practice, but yet the growth of his business has accelerated because I'm in the prime of my practice right now. Right. So, and it's like I have two brothers, right? None of my brothers don't have the access to my dad that I have. Like I spend almost every single day with my dad, like in a situation that is like loving and respectful, and like we work as allies. We don't work as father and son. Like we're teammates. So it's a cool experience. So like, do I want to tell my kid, like, you reach for the stars and do anything you want? Yeah, of course. But like, I don't know. I guess if I had the opportunity to work with him, like now looking at it with my dad, like this is pretty awesome. And he has to take the same medicine that I took, and understood that when that time comes, I'm the boss and I'm not dad anymore, and if he was unable to do that, then who knows if it would work out. It takes a lot to swallow your pride and tell your parents, like, I appreciate that you're in charge and you have the correct answer in this situation. Thank you.
Right.
Really tough to do that.
I think that's true with even people who you're not related to, where they're your boss. When they're your boss and they've got decades of experience and you're a new attorney, probably not the best go round to tell your boss they're wrong, right? You listen to the experience.
The other wrinkle, he used to be my landlord too. So he used to be my dad, my boss, and my landlord. I was just on thin ice at all times. And I'm like, God, if I piss him off at work, he's gonna raise my rent, and then he's gonna tell my mom. Like, this is really getting complicated.
But I mean, now that you're like, you can just share with us. I mean, like, favorite kid status over your brothers? Like, I hope I'm the retirement plan. So I hope that I have, I definitely, and like in my younger life, I was not the preferred child. However, I feel like I hopefully at this point may have elevated myself to that position. I hope. Who knows? That's awesome. Well, thank you so much this is a really interesting perspective, because you're the first interviewee we've had on here who have a family generational law firm, and it's really interesting perspective. And I think your advice is applicable across the board though, whether it's big law, medium law, or small law, because your boss is your boss, whether they're related or not. All right. Well, I have a few other questions for you, and then we'll get into some fun questions. Okay. So, Andrew, do you have any advice for bar preparation for people who are studying for the bar or will be taking the bar this next year?
So, the biggest thing I learned in the bar exam is that you have to study for it. Like, you're not just like, oh, I paid attention in law school and I'm smart enough and I'm going to pass, right? Law school prepares you for probably 5% of that entire exam. In the last, like the 3 months between graduation and when you take the bar, you have to learn more than you've ever learned in your whole life in 3 months. And your life has to go on hold. It's crazy to think about, but like you have to do that. I mean, there was a point at that point in my life, I was living in Boston and my now wife, then girlfriend, was living in New York, and we were like doing long distance. Mm-hmm. And there was a point, like we took the bar in July, and I had to tell her in the middle of June, like, I'll see you in August. I can't like, I can't do both right now. Like I have to focus on my career, you know, and there's just no substitute for the amount of time that you need to put into to learn what you have to learn. And, you know, you can't fake it. That test is designed with every single question that there is a correct answer and there is an answer that's almost the correct answer. And if you didn't study hard enough, you will pick the wrong one every single time. That entire test is designed to in the wrinkles and the gray areas and the one sentence explanations that they give you in a practice book. That's what the bar exam tests you on. And you have to study. I mean, I studied every single person that I studied with failed except for me.
Really?
So
Wow.
yeah. And it's like, and we were all, and they were working hard. Right. But I had a little extra motivation, I guess, or I worked just a little bit harder than them. And I remember I asked my dad, I'm like, oh, everybody else failed. I must have just passed because we were like doing the practice tests and we were all in the same place. And I remember my dad goes, do me a favor. He goes, don't ask for a recount. All right. He's like, you got the P. Don't ask any more questions. Just move on. So my bar exam advice is you have to take it seriously. You have to study. And for me, like, I'm not a Barbary rep, right? But like I used Barbary when I studied, and I found that their system put me exactly in the place that I needed to be. They said, if you take a practice test and you are like testing below 70%, you're not there yet, right? You're not there. And you know, and the other big thing, and I don't know if they did this for you too, but one of the most helpful things I thought was like when in Boston, we all take the bar exam in like a big convention center together. They did like a full day of prep, like 2 weeks before the bar exam. So you went into the testing site and you took like a mock test over like the whole day. And it taught me important things like the traffic sucks getting here in the morning, right? And when it was lunchtime and there was like a giant cafeteria of food there, it was like, I'm going to wait in line the whole time. So it was like, you know what? Let's get a cooler. Let's throw some sandwiches in the trunk. We'll walk outside at lunch and we'll just like sit in a folding chair and eat in the parking lot. And we won't deal with any of that stress. So it's like gave me the opportunity to set myself up for success too, because I trusted the testing method, and like it rang true, and I passed, but it wasn't for lack of effort. It's all effort first with that test, all effort. And I think the other big thing is, you know, in terms of like all the questions are tiered. Like you have to, we will call it the low hanging fruit, right? Like the tier 1 questions, the easy questions, like you have to get 100% on those.
Right.
You can't trip on the easy ones. Like get the tier 4 ones wrong if you're going to get some wrong, but like you can't get the definition of murder. Like you can't get confused on what that is. Like you have to have the foundation, you have to crush the low hanging fruit. And then if you get enough of the low hanging fruit, like hopefully you've studied enough to try to get some of those next ones. But if you get the higher level ones wrong, like, okay, it could be a testing question. You don't even know, but like do the work, build the foundation, and just put yourself in. And the other thing is tell yourself that you're going to pass the test, right? Like you can't, oh, well, like what if I fail? Like it just can't be an option. You just say, I did this. I worked so hard in school. I've studied so hard for this test. Like I'm passing this test, and then I'll be in control of my life after. If I don't want to be a lawyer, I won't be a lawyer, but I did it, and I have the luxury now.
Right. And you brought up a really interesting thing that I wish they had done with us. I took Barbary as well, but the preparation before the exam, I mean, walking into a convention center, when I took it, a convention center in Minneapolis, I mean, hundreds of kids, because there were at the time 4 law schools within the metro area. So, I mean, walking in, I was not prepared for that. That was just anxiety.
It's overwhelming.
Right?
That many people
test, you know, you're seeing all these kids with just stressing out, and that would have been nice to prep myself for that. And so it's really good to hear that and maybe other students can go check out where they're going to have the bar exam before they do it, because that was a ride.
Yeah, it was that. I honestly, like, I think about that. Like that was so beneficial. Even like to understand, like this is where the bathrooms are in the room, right?
Right.
Like you're like, I have to get up and pee, and I'm on the clock the whole time. Like they don't stop the test while you're peeing. So get up and learn point A to point B as quick as you can, so you can get back to your seat and get back to work.
Exactly. Dehydrate yourself. learn to live on as little water as possible.
That's true.
All right. I mean, it's good advice. Okay, so I am going to now ask you a few like fun questions.
Okay. Let me scared.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna play. Have you ever played Shag, Marry, Kill, or F, Marry, Kill? I'm gonna.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
If you know, okay, so Shag, Marry, Kill. You got to choose one to shag, one to marry, one to kill. All right.
Okay.
Shag, Marry, Kill, LexisNexis, Westlaw, or Bloomberg for legal research.
Ooh. So I think like I have never used Bloomberg. So this is such an interesting wrinkle here. Like, what am I attracted to the new shiny toy, or am I afraid of the new shiny toy?
I mean, you're gonna have to take a chance.
I think, all right. So here's where I'm at. I have not used Bloomberg, but I'm confident that it is better than LexisNexis, because LexisNexis sucks. So LexisNexis is getting killed in this situation, no matter what.
Okay.
No matter what. And I think what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to shag Bloomberg, right? Because if it doesn't work out, like it was one time, and like thanks for the memories, and I'm gonna go safe, and I'm gonna marry Westlaw, and hopefully like it won't continue to increase monthly over the course of my life for my billing.
Although it is kind of like a marriage if it did increase monthly.
It's lifetime alimony in my Westlaw plan there.
There you go. All right, we're gonna do another one.
Okay.
We're going to do shag, marry, kill some Supreme Court justices. Okay.
Ooh.
All right, shag, marry, alive and dead. Okay. Shag, marry, kill. Okay, we've got Keegan, RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or our new one, Amy Comey Barrett. So you've got. Go ahead and decide.
So it's tough. I know being anti our Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a big no-no in the law field there, right? But I think for me, like she's gonna have to go. She has to go, and here's why.
Kill RBG.
Here's why. I'm all about female empowerment, and I'm thankful for what she did, but she has to go because all she's going to do is dissent to everything that you do in your whole life, right? Like you went to the supermarket. Well, here's a dissent about what the problems that I have on your shopping list, right?
Right.
So,
right.
And I think that leaves me probably. I think I'm going to shag Keegan. I think. And I'm gonna long haul with Amy Coney Barrett. I think so. Remove her from the political element that she got thrown into when she got appointed. Like I think she's intelligent, and I think she's very well spoken, and I think that she commands a lot of respect on the court. And like when I look for locking it up long term, like that's what I want. I think.
And she's got like a lot of kids, and she's like super mom. I mean, I think that's respectful. Like no matter what, if you're an attorney and a parent, and you can count your kids and they're all there and you're not missing one, like in Home Alone, like A+ to you. Because that's a lot. She's got like 7 kids. So I don't blame you there. I don't blame you.
Kevin McAllister of the worst parents on the planet, or what?
Seriously. I mean, they did it twice. I don't even know.
Like really, the second time there was really no excuse, right? You should have been on notice after the first one that this kid might disappear. Let's get a leash or something.
Where are DCF attorneys? Like, why did no one check on the McAllisters ever in Chicago? It's just very odd to me. Okay, now we're going to do an either or really fast. Okay. Either or, Zoom court or in-person court?
So convenient. I don't know. This is so hard. Like convenience factor, Zoom court is like roll out of bed, throw. You know what I'm saying? It's like the business mullet. It's like business up top. party downstairs, right?
Oh yeah.
But I have to say, I think I'm going to take in-person court
Okay.
because like the blue-blooded lawyer in me, like there's really nothing like being in a courtroom and like wearing a suit and being in front of a real judge and like really representing and advocating for people. Like, I'm sorry, like that's what it's about. And I think like I deal with a lot of people in like real estate conveyancing, and like if you ask them, oh, like, hey, I got sued, you did a purchase for me and I got sued over it, and then they'd be like, oh, I don't really do that. You know what I'm saying? I just do transactional work. Like, you got to go to court to be a lawyer, right? Like you can't just be passing papers. Like you have to go to court because you have to be able to defend the work that you did for yourself. And like you can't just like, oh, I haven't been to court in 20 years, let me show up and expect like what's going on. Like, you know, some people get out. Like I remember like my dad, he told me the first time, he's like, I went to court the first time, I didn't even know what table to stand at. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Left table or right table, which way do I go? So I think for me, I'm going back to in-person court because especially in Massachusetts, like they are milking the shit out of COVID, milking it. And it's like, let's get back in person. Let's start having real conversations, because the other thing is like, you can hide forever behind emails in terms of like resolving stuff and being dismissive of stuff. Like, let's go to a mediation. Let's get to a conference table inside of a courthouse where the threat is, I go in and see a judge and I potentially lose my case, or I settle it, right? Like that's the best settlements happen at the table of those situations. And you can't replicate that in Zoom court at all.
Right. My boss has a very, very kind of funny anecdote to that. He calls it the puke factor, right? That really true settlement, effective settlement talks, if a case should settle, because, you know, there are cases that should go to trial and there are cases that should settle. Real settlement comes from parties entering the courtroom and having that puke factor. There's a jury or a judge deciding this, and all of this is at stake, but being there in person gives them that effect of going, okay, I need to take this seriously, whether it's, you know, the judge being the mediator or sending them out in the, you know, foyer to discuss one more time settlement. You've got to have that rush of adrenaline that I think you only get in court. I just haven't seen it in Zoom. I don't know if you feel differently.
You can't replicate it. Even like we've done a couple depositions, like things like moments where depositions would get heated and you'd be like pounding a table and tell me what about this and what about that. And then it's like, you're building it. And then like the internet connection goes down and it's just like buffering. You lose all the steam. Like you lose all the momentum. Like you can't replicate that. And it's the puke factor. That is a great way to put it. Like you really better start taking inventory about how strong your case is, because we're going to walk in there and we're going to test it, right? Like, so you don't want to do that. You don't want to testify now all of a sudden when it's real. Like, maybe we should settle the case.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I think we're buffering. Hang on. I'm going to wait.
I can still hear you though.
You can hear me. Okay, let's see. Oh, there you are. There you are. See,
good.
A perfect example of technology ruining your flow, right?
So, in case you didn't think Zoom was listening to us, there's your proof, right?
Yeah, our like NSA, FBI agents are like, I'm going to just F with them a little bit. All right. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. I would also love if you would give out to the, you know, audience your social media handle and let them know where they can follow you further.
Definitely. So I'm at Delory Law. My last name is Delory Law. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I'm on everything, but definitely follow me on Instagram. That's where we have the most fun. My dad doesn't monitor it, so I'm just out running amok every day. So come have some fun with me, and I really appreciate you having me on. I've had a blast. So
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Well, me too. Well, thank you again for talking with Lawyer Interviews, and you have a great day.
Thanks, Reg. See ya.